All right. Welcome back to Happy Hour with Heather and Guest. I'm that other dude, Andrew. And as always, I'm joined by Heather. And I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off.
That's okay.
No? Okay.
We just said hi.
Um,
Hello.
yes. Okay, well, welcome back. This is episode number 126. We are slowly approaching whatever the next milestone marker is. I guess we just passed 125, so we're on our way to 150. But today I thought we could switch categories again and go back to a spotlight on an older album, one that had personal value to me. During a fistful of Faithful, I'll get into it, but this was one of the albums that Martin liked that was contemporary. So I remember being really excited about that. But anyway, the band is called Solace. They're still together. They're still making music. They just released an album in 2019 called The Brink. But the album that I had suggested we look at was their debut album from 2000 called Further. So, and then I guess originally they're from Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, but all of their social media handles have NJ for New Jersey, I'm guessing. So I'm not sure if that's where they are now or what. But either way, let me get out of your way so you can let us know what you thought about Further.
Okay. Um, like you said, this is their first full-length album, and it was released in the year 2000. The album cover is entitled Midnight Mass 2 and done by artist Wes Benscoter. And I looked up other works by him. There are 52 other album covers that were listed. He also did the cover for Dio, Stand Up and Shout, and Black Sabbath, the Dio years, along with a lot of other metal album covers. I read that this album is important because it helped the independent doom and stoner metal movements because it has a darker tone. It has been compared to Black Sabbath, Tool, Soundgarden, and Alice in Chains. And speaking of Alice in Chains, my favorite song on the album is Angels Dreaming. I love the lower tone, the slower pace, the vocal harmonies, and the guitar riff towards the end of the song. It gets denser, heavier, and more intense. I tried to find the lyrics for the song, and I read that lyrics were officially released for only 4 songs on this album. It is believed that the personal nature of the lyrics prevented the vocalist from allowing their publication. And that made me wonder if that's a reason why other lyrics aren't published. Music is very personal, and making art is like bearing your soul. We've talked about essential albums, and this album is definitely an essential album that should be in everyone's collection, especially because the cultural significance that it has. I saw that they're out playing shows, and that's pretty awesome. And sometimes I feel like being in the Midwest, I miss out on cool stuff that's going on the East Coast. But there's cool stuff here like corn and soybeans and, wind farms. Too much coolness to handle.
Well, at first I thought you meant corn with a K, but no, you mean corn with a C.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting because there was so I was doing a fistful of Faithful back in 2013, where I would basically try to convince my office mate Martin, who was a very meek British fellow who liked Britpop, that he should listen to heavy metal music. So often I would find, music that was the established hits. I would play like Black Sabbath for him, or Metallica, or things that were really well known, and very mainstream and accessible. Um, which Martin didn't. It was interesting because we kept a running list of stuff he liked, and outside of like really early doom, like operatic vocals like Pentagram, new wave of British heavy metal. He didn't really, and he did like hair metal though. He
Who
liked,
doesn't?
yeah. Well, of all the genres, that's probably the easiest to digest. Um, so yeah, like Poison, he was a fan of Poison. I'm sure I could have played like anything from the '80s, and he would have. But but then I remember I played tracks from this album, and he liked it, and I was like, oh my god, this is such a huge crossover, because it is stoner doom, but it is unique enough to that someone who's a fan of Britpop will find it catchy. Um, and then I just remember Angels Dreaming is my favorite song on the album too. So it's funny that you mentioned that.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
yeah, well, I there is too much of it like that you've already mentioned. I do like also how it opens with sort of like rainfall, um, and the structure is not. It's not. I feel like they play around. It's like a progressive kind of structure in a way, and they use a little bit of the loud, or quiet, loud, quiet, sort of thing, where the hammer drops at multiple points. But I remember being on the train platform in Hong Kong, waiting for one of my trains to come, just listening to that song on repeat. Like the song would play, and then it would end, and I had it set up on my. I think I had an iPod at the time, so I had it set up on the iPod to just play the single song on repeat. Um, but yeah, I think I always really I mean, I love finding bands who people don't know about necessarily, but to find a band that I feel can like take the place of one of my favorite bands that's no longer making music, I mean, that's such a win. And I felt like this album like took the spot on the list where like, okay, well, this is the natural progression, like you had said, from we're going from Black Sabbath, Tool, and Alice in Chains. Well, what's the logical next step? um, and yeah, I haven't. This is one of those times where I was like, oh, I should listen to all of their out. Like this should be the start of like a deep dive. And I know they've released like 3 or 4 other albums since then, including The Brink, which just came out in 2019. So I feel like now there's no better time to go back and do a deep dive. But I also remember thinking when what is the first track, I think, is called Man Dog, maybe? Yes. Like the first once the first note in Man Dog kicks off, you can listen to the whole album without having to skip anything. And that I feel like that's the true test of whether or not an album is good, is if you need to skip any tracks. But yeah, Angels Dreaming and then Followed, which I think is the third track on the album. Those were my two favorites. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that you dug Angels Dreaming. I feel like that not
Yeah.
not not a given, but I was like, we have enough similar tastes in music that it makes sense that we would both go towards the same songs. So
Yeah. And that did kind of have an Alice in Chains vibe to it, you know, which
sure.
I'm a huge fan.
Yeah,
So,
there's something. It's interesting because like, and I was reading about this too, that there the that further kind of helped them escape being pigeonholed as like a stone, just your run of the mill stoner doom band.
yeah,
I think that sort of helped them to kind of set themselves apart a little bit.
yeah, because I think it's darker, and I think that kind of changed the perception, because the feel of the music is darker.
Yeah. Well, and I think also it is, there's a vulnerability there, I think, too, it was interesting because I didn't know that the lyrics, that some of the lyrics hadn't been published. Um, it makes sense now because it is, you are really vulnerable and you are tough. Um, but that's fascinating.
Yeah, 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 and I am always curious, you know, why more why artists don't publish their lyrics. That always fascinates me what the reason behind it is. And
Right.
this makes total sense to me, why they wouldn't publish lyrics if they're that personal to them, which I get.
Sure.
Because it is it's sometimes it's really difficult to express those kind of feelings and emotions.
Yeah.
And and sometimes too, I wonder, because a lot of lyrics, sometimes it seems like they get misheard or misinterpreted also. And
Yes.
you know um I'm wondering if lyrics if you had access to the correct lyrics and you sang, like for when you sing along to the music, singing along the correct lyrics instead of what you think you hear might make a difference.
There are times where I purposefully won't look up what the lyrics are because
Yeah,
I don't want the magic. I know I'm clearly saying the wrong lyrics, but
yeah,
yeah, that's known as a mondegreen when you
yeah,
mishear song lyrics. There are a lot of famous examples, but
yeah,
yeah, I think also it is interesting though to like allow for the audience to sort of project what they think you're saying or what the meanings might be. But yeah, it's interesting. Now that I'm thinking about it, I do listen to the lyrics, but if you were to ask me now, like, could you say the lyrics to any of these songs? I don't know if I could. Like, I
yeah,
think I'm just so caught up in the music that, yeah, that's it. That is interesting. But I'm really glad you dug the album. Um,
yeah, yeah.
I,
It's
th-
a great
I
album.
Yeah, I thought you would have. And I'm again, now that I've just listened to it, I'm sort of like I'm back on my. I should do a deep dive and just like listen to all their catalog.
Yeah,
So we shall see.
yeah,
But, but if you don't have this album, definitely check it out. It's really worth it. It does bridge the gap, between the history of this really wonderful genre and where it ended up going. Like it is
yeah,
that sort of like Rosetta Stone that you might need.
yeah. Kind of feel like you're going from old school to new school,
Yep.
you know?
This is the conduit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, next week the ball goes back into your court and you'll select what we listen to, which I'm excited about as I always am. So, but I'm glad you dug this album and we will see you all again next week.
And I'm glad it brought good memories back for you from your Fistful of Faithful
Oh,
show
absolutely.
and Martin and yeah.
It did. No, it was wonderful. Thank you.